Hashtags are a great way to expand your reach and engage with people on Instagram. But if you've never used them before or aren't quite sure what you're doing, they can be daunting. We're going to take you through the basics of how hashtags work, why they're important, and how you can use them on Instagram. A hashtag is essentially a searchable tag you can add to your Instagram post to help categorise it. You can think of it as a giant filing system, and you use the hashtags to tell Instagram more about you, your business, your post, and the people you want to reach. Hashtags can be 1 word, 2 words, or even longer. The reason why hashtags are important and why so many people are excited about them is because hashtags let you reach a whole new audience who might not see your post otherwise. This is because of the searchability of hashtags. People can search Instagram by hashtags and see the most popular post using that tag, as well as the most recent posts. This gives you the opportunity for your post to be seen by people who don't follow you, but are interested in what you're talking about. This means more opportunities for brand awareness, for driving engagement, and for getting new followers. You can use up to 30 hashtags in your Instagram post or reel, and each is an opportunity to be seen. If you've never created a hashtag before, it's very easy. You just press the hash key, sometimes called the pound key, and type the words you want to use, like hashtag social media training school. If your hashtag is more than 1 word long, don't leave a space between them, as then only the first word will be tagged. Punctuation also doesn't work in hashtags, so don't add apostrophes, dashes, or exclamation marks. So, you know how to make a hashtag. So now the question is, what do you hashtag? Choosing hashtags is something that a lot of people struggle with. Some people can't think of any to use, other people have a huge list and struggle to cut it down to 30. We talk about this in a lot more detail in our video on how to choose your hashtags, but a simple way to break it down if you're unsure is to use about 10 hashtags describing what was in your post, 10 describing your business, and 10 describing your customers or target audience. Say you were a small gin brand and you've created a post showing a delicious cocktail featuring your gin. You would use hashtags such as gin cocktail and cocktail recipes to describe the post, hashtags such as local gin or gin distillery to describe you, and then hashtags like gin lovers or gin drinkers to target your customers. Remember to use hashtags that your target audience would use or are likely to look for. If you have time, a great way to help plan your hashtags is to look at what competitor brands are using, as well as any influencers or respected people in your industry. Once you know what hashtags to use, the final dilemma people can face is where to put them. There are 2 camps. The first says to put hashtags in the caption of your post, underneath whatever your post is talking about. The second camp says you should not put the hashtag in the caption, and instead put them in a comment on your post. Team Caption says their way is more searchable. Team Comment says their way looks neater, as well as being better for screen readers, which are used by the visually impaired to read captions. However, both ways work, so do whatever suits you. Hopefully by now you know a little more about hashtags and how they can help you on Instagram. Make sure to check out our other lessons to help take your hashtag use to the next level. There are millions of potential hashtags you can use. So how do you choose what ones are best for you in your post? We're going to break down how you can find hashtags that work for you. We also have a downloadable PDF you can use to go over this later when you're actually sitting down to choose your hashtags, as well as a worksheet to help put what we talk about into practice. If you're overwhelmed at considering what hashtags to use, we're going to help you work out what ones are right for you. Our goal is to help you create a bank of hashtags that you can draw upon when you need them. First, let's talk about hashtag size. Hashtags can have anything from 1 use to over 1 billion uses. And with key hashtags used so many times, it can be hard to find the right ones to help you stand out. When we are planning hashtags for ourselves or for a client, we break them down into 6 sizes. Tiny is when the hashtag has under 10,000 uses. Small is when it has between 10,000 and 50,000 uses. Medium is between 50,000 and 100,000. Big is between 100,000 and 500,000. Huge is between 500,000 and a million. And giant is anything over a million uses. If you have less than 10,000 followers on Instagram, you want the majority of your hashtags to be in the tiny to big range. If you don't know how to check the size of a hashtag, don't worry, you don't need to manually count them all. You can see the number of uses by going to the search bar on Instagram and typing in the hashtag you want to use. It will tell you how many times it has been used already. There are also some apps you can use to help find hashtags, and these also show how many times a tag has been used. We'll talk about them in a little more detail later. You might be asking that all-important question, why does size matter? When it comes to hashtags, size matters because there are only 2 ways hashtags get seen via search: top posts and recent posts. Like the Explore page, the top posts change frequently and are based on a variety of things. As well as how many engagement the post has got, it also considers how quickly the post receives engagement. That means a post that got 500 likes and comments in the first hour is considered better to a post that got the same number of likes but over a 2-day period. This makes it incredibly hard for smaller companies to be featured on this page, as it's hard to get all your followers online and to like something in that short time span, and is particularly true for the larger hashtags which have millions of uses. However, if you add hashtags that don't have as many uses, there is more of an opportunity for you to make that page. This doesn't mean come up with weird and wonderful hashtags that no one is using, because no one will search for them. You want to use hashtags in that middle range, particularly that small to medium range we discussed. The exact same is true for recent posts. If a hashtag is used 10 times a minute, it pushes your post down that feed incredibly quickly. It means that there is less chance of people finding you through that tag. In an hour, there would be 600 posts ahead of yours, and you'd be lost in the sea of them. Those middle ground hashtags keep you afloat and bobbing at the top of the most recent page a little bit longer, meaning more chance to be seen. Now you know the size categories of hashtags. Let's talk about the type of hashtags you can use to take advantage of this and get your post seen. We're going to give examples from the hairdressing industry, but the rules apply for all sectors. The biggest hashtag type, and the one your mind is probably drawn to first, is industry hashtags. These are the general terms and tend to be 1 or maybe 2 words long. These are popular tags that will generally be used a lot and will sit in the huge or giant categories with over 1 million uses, so this means they're harder to stand out for. Industry hashtags in the hairdressing world could include hairdressers, or even common hairdressing techniques like balayage. Niche tags are tags that are more specific to you and your audience. These will have been used roughly between 10,000 and 500,000 times, and will be focused on certain aspect of what you do, or a certain customer needs. For hairdressers, this could include cut and colour. This type of hashtag is going to be your best friend as you start to grow. Post-specific hashtags are ones you won't use all the time, but are related to what's going on in a specific post, something related to the image or video you've used, or to do with what you've written. For hairdressers, an example here would be mid-length hair. Next, you have location-based hashtags. These are the ones that make your post more relevant to your local audience, and would include things like London hairdressers or hairdressers in London. Don't just use the word local in your industry name, as what is local to you might not be local to the person searching. Day or date-based hashtags are ones that are broad across all areas, but are tied to a specific day or a set calendar date. This could include Throwback Thursday or International Hairdressers Day. Finally, you have branded hashtags. These are hashtags that will probably only be used by you or people sharing content related to you. This could include your company name, or if you run a campaign, you may choose to have a related hashtag. In general, when it comes to choosing what hashtags to use in a post, we suggest you break it down as up to 5 hashtags describing your industry, up to 5 hashtags which include your location or refer to the day or date, between 5 and 10 specific to what the post is about, and the rest being niche specific hashtags to describe your business and customers. This is just a guideline. You might decide not to have any location related tags and focus purely on your industry, or to use 15 to describe the post. It can change on a post by post basis, and that's totally fine, but this breakdown is a good basis to use as a starting point. Now you know what type of hashtags you want to use. This is where that size aspect comes back into play. If you have up to 10,000 followers in your Instagram account, we suggest you break it down like this. Up to 5 huge or giant hashtags that have over 500,000 uses. These will probably be your industry related tags. Up to 15 big hashtags with between 100,000 and 500,000 uses. These will be some of your niche hashtags and potentially post specific tags. And finally, at least 15 medium or smaller hashtags with up to 100,000 uses. These will be the smaller niche and post specific tags as well as location tags. As you grow, you can look to use bigger hashtags. Now you know what hashtags to use, you might be keen to start researching your hashtags and deciding what ones suit you best. We're going to talk through this now, but this is where our downloadable PDF and our worksheet will really help you to plan out your hashtags. To make it so you don't need to spend ages researching hashtags post by post, we like to create a large bank of hashtags. This acts like a pick and mix. You have a huge range of hashtags of different sizes focusing on different areas that you can choose from. To research your hashtags, start by brainstorming all the things you're likely to talk about on Instagram. If you have content themes, this is a great place to start. A content theme, sometimes known as a content pillar, is where you break your content up into the main topics you will cover. For example, a fitness brand might have 3 themes: workouts, motivation, and company focus. We do have a video on how to choose your content themes if that's something you're interested in learning more about. If you don't have content themes in place though, don't worry, you can still plan your hashtags. Just take a few minutes to think about what type of content you usually post to give yourself some ideas. When you've got a list of themes or content topics, start to list out keywords or phrases related to each, which you can use as your hashtags. Start out broad, then narrow it down more and more. You want to come up with at least 20 or 30 terms per theme. If you're struggling for ideas, have a look at competitors and other brands in your sector and see what they are using. You can also pick one of the giant hashtags related to your industry. Look at the top posts for that and see what other hashtags they are using to help you come up with ideas. Another way to think of ideas is to look at your 9 most recent posts and look at each image or video. Describe what is in them. Going back to the hairdresser's example, it might be before and after picture, cut and colour, blonde hair dye, new hairdo, and hair extensions. From these broader terms, you can then try to see if there's anything more niche you could use. For example, instead of just blonde hair, you could add blonde bob or warm blonde. Try to be as descriptive as possible. You can also use seasonal hashtags like summer style or daily hashtags like Monday motivation or throwback Thursday. To take this a step further, look for any national days that tie into your brand, and if there are hashtags surrounding that, like Hairdressers Appreciation Day. Finally, consider what your target audience are using. You don't want to just be using terms that your competitors are using, but actual customers or clients don't look at. Try to see what real customers and your target audience use when they post. This can help give you a whole new perspective. Now you have a full list of ideas, we like to break this down into sizes. Which of the hashtags are small, which are medium, and which are giant. This can be time consuming, so if you don't have time to do it, it's not the end of the world. But it does make hashtag planning a lot easier. It's a case of going through all those hashtags you listed and seeing how many times they've been used, then grouping them based on size. Our workbook is laid out to help you list these in an easy to understand way, so if you haven't downloaded that already, it's a great place to start. If you need a little help coming up with hashtag ideas, there are various tools, some free and some paid for, that can help do just that. If you need help coming up with a list of hashtags, free tools Ingrammar, Display Purposes, and All Hashtag can help. Put in one keyword and it will suggest similar hashtags you can use. However, there are more advanced platforms such as Flick and Hashtagify, which you can use if you want to get a lot more detail. If you're a small brand, you probably don't need these paid for options, but they are there if you do want to use them. Some of the tools, such as Ingrammar and RightTag, don't just give suggestions from keywords. You can also upload a photo or share a link to get suggestions. Now you have a big list of hashtags to choose from. It's all about finding what works for you. Try different hashtags and see which perform best. When it starts to become clear that some are working better than others, you can put those into a document and come back to them more regularly. You should start to see your engagement grow and hopefully make that top post page. Want to make sure you're using your hashtags correctly? We'll take you through 5 tips for hashtag best practice that work on all channels. One question a lot of people ask is how many hashtags to use. On Instagram, you are limited to up to 30 hashtags in a post on your feed. We recommend you use them all, especially when you're starting out, as each hashtag gives you the opportunity to be seen by your target audience. On Twitter, there's technically no limit to the amount of hashtags you can use, but research has found that tweets with between 1 and 2 hashtags perform best, and have up to 21% more engagement than posts with 3 or more hashtags. If you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, you can use hashtags here as well. You can use as many as you want, but 5 is the recommended limit. And finally on TikTok, you can use as many hashtags as you like, but given the caption limit is only 100 characters, you don't have a lot of room to play with. Because of these limits, it's so important to think carefully about the hashtags you use and make sure they work well for you. Our second tip for best practice is particularly true on Twitter. If you're using a trending hashtag, check to see why it is trending before you use it, and if it's appropriate to use. Back in 2011, during the Arab Spring, the word Cairo was trending, due to protests in Egypt. Fashion brand Kenneth Cole tweeted that the uproar was because people had heard the brand's spring collection was now online. Kenneth Cole had obviously seen this as a chance to jump on a trending hashtag to get more reach and engagement. And while the tweet did get both of these, it had a negative backlash on the brand. While some trending topics, such as a TV show, might be appropriate to comment on, it's worth steering clear of big news events, tragedies, or anything political. If you've ever checked out Social Media Training School's social media, you might have noticed that we capitalise the first letter of each word in our hashtags. This is what is called camel case, because it looks like the humps of a camel. Camel case is important because it helps you understand where new words begin. This is important for humans, but also for screen readers, which are used by those with visual impairments and literally read out words. Let's talk through an example of why this is important. In 2020, the hashtag Black Lives Matter played an important role in a global social movement. However, when camel case was not used in this hashtag, a screen reader sees it as Black Lives Matter, which takes away from the impact of the campaign. Our fourth tip for social media best practice is to switch your hashtags up. Using the same hashtags on every post can get repetitive and can seem a little spammy, and this is particularly the case on Instagram. We recommend that at least 5 of your hashtags are related to what you're talking about in the actual post, to help make sure your hashtags you use are relevant. And finally, check that you're not using hashtags that are shadow banned by Instagram. There are certain hashtags on Instagram where you can't see the most recent posts. This is because there have been issues with posts using that tag that don't follow Instagram's guidelines. Some shadow banned hashtags include Snapchat, adulting, and Valentine's Day. If you're not sure if a hashtag is shadow banned, type it into Instagram's hashtag search bar. If it comes up saying recent posts for this tag are hidden because some posts may not follow Instagram's community guidelines, then do not use the hashtag. Because you can't see recent uses of the tag, unless you're a big enough brand to rank in top uses, it is a wasted tag. And if you consistently use shadow ban tag, it could have a negative effect on your account. And there you have it. Follow these 5 best practice tips to make sure you get the most out of your hashtags.